Hi there. I'm making this video on the Triplett-Model 666-R because when I had found this at a flea market not too long ago, I could find very little information on the internet or YouTube, regardless of a triplet, and looking up. I mean, I found a few articles that were pretty generic, and a few listings, kind of like old newspaper clippings. But I wanted to make this in order, so that way if anyone happens to come across one of theirs, and maybe don't have complete materials that would have come with it, they can use this video as reference. And so, without further ado, so this is, as I said, the Triplett-Model 666-R, and multimeter. I wanted to go over just what it's capable of doing. I want to go over the insides, so we'll be looking at that. Give a general idea of what came with what I presume to be the original leads, as well as then what is the original manual. I got pretty lucky when I had found this at a flea market. Didn't know that the biggest thing is that manual, and had no idea that it even had come with, until I had to take apart the leather casing, which I will also show. But everything seems to be was in pretty decent condition, actually, given all said and done. So, first things first, as you can tell clearly, you're capable of reading in DC and AC voltage. You're able to read in DC milliamps as well as then ohms. Now, up top here, with these with the lead ports, if you're reading just your typical average metrics, you're going to be using these two ports here. These two on the sides are only if, respectively, you are reading in the 1 amp, up to 1 amp, or 5,000 volts. And obviously that's labeled off of using this, so don't be deceived by the two numbers. Obviously, if you have leads plugged into these two and you turn it to here, you're only reading up to 1,000 volts. Now, when it comes to actually using this guy, brief demonstration. So let's say, me being more of a computer science, deal a bit with Raspberry Pis on the side. So, I want to read off of that 3.3 volt rail that Pis have. 3 or 5 volt, right? Doesn't matter. Well, got your negative, your positive, and then from there, obviously, making sure that you're reading what is going to be the corresponding scale here. Raspberry Pis are DC, so turn that right on over to the 10 volt. And then from there, we have the two leads. And I would attach two leads that have alligator clips, though you can take off these appendages here. I'll show that later. And you have just testing points, contact points. And from there, you would read off your voltage, make sure everything's looking good, clearly. And so, you would do that as scaling. As you can see, the most bottom one, in the black, is DC on terms of these bottom scales here. The most bottom one is your 10 volt measurements. You got your 50, your 250, and then when it comes to the 1,000 volt, all you're going to do is read off whatever this bottom one is times 100. Important trick or not even tip, this is part of the manual when using this guy, is if you are measuring in your ohms here, what it says to do is go ahead and put your leads back in, set it to 1, and then, excuse me, take your test leads here, short them, and then what happens here is by making your making the short here, whatever feedback is coming off of the battery allows you to know, like, okay, using this ohm adjuster here, you know, which direction, you know, you zero it. And so for me, I had to turn it all the way to the left to get that done. Now I'm gonna go ahead and open up the back and give you a brief idea of what that looks like. So here we have that. Excuse me, let me adjust the light a little bit more, a little bit better for you. So, obviously, as you would imagine, all these are for the respective settings here. Now, for batteries, as well as these guys, for batteries, this guy he is correct, but to my chagrin, I didn't realize that I bought a alkaline battery, 1.5 volts, as a contrary to what the owner's manual calls for, which is actually 1.2 volts. So a nickel magnesium. I can't remember off the top. It's in there. Though these AA's are good to go. They're 1.2 volts. This battery here is what's needed for measuring that ohm resistance. And then these two, I guess, help with powering everything else. For me, this took a little bit of gumption to be able to get that most inwards AA there. I'm sorry. You really can't see that too well, but underneath this guy, there's another. I had to kind of file down part of the contact point because this guy here was so rusted in. So able to finally get that in, gotten repaired, and contrary to how dirty it may all look, everything seems to be working in great condition. Each one of these is addressed inside the owner's manual in regards to its purpose, as well as in what is the corresponding like replacement part that you need in order to then keep things going and running. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move on to those contact, the leads here. Now, to my understanding, these are the original leads that would have come with the product. Again, I'm seeing that this multimeter was released back in 1952, I believe is what it is. So the insulator for these leads is actually leather. So you gotta keep that in mind if you happen to find these, find the original ones. For me, leads were all in good contact, or good condition, made great contact, you know. And so the nice little neat trick that I discovered not too long ago when I was using this guy to do some readings was, you got alligator clips that come onto here, of course, and if you pull just a little bit, I put this guy on a little bit hard. There we go. Underneath is that kind of a testing point. And so, underneath this here, the negative side, makes things a little bit more convenient. Let me put that off here. Now, wanted to show also then one more thing that came with, that you may come across, is the carrying case. So excuse the fact that it is currently disassembled. That is because I had to undo the sewing, the stitching. It was coming undone. It was terrible. But here are the sides for it. What would happen is, ooh, that's my fault. These brackets here would screw into the top portion. This is the top here, by the way, into those two screw holes, and that way then it stays within case, of course, but all leather. sewing, here's the bottom and here's the back of the case. Obviously it would sew along here, regarding the sides. This guy was, according to the owner's manual, upon special request. So if you happen to find one of these guys solo with maybe the test leads as well, then of course, whether or not you have this would have been totally dependent on whomever had ordered it to begin with. So keep that in mind. But it's fairly nice carrying case. I obviously have to get some work done besides the stitching and getting it all constructed back together. A wear and tear issue you might come across is here in this front flap. We'll show that. Here we go. So that's how it would have opened up. This is an old number here, the old owner. You got this flap here, and you got this back flap here up on top. So these two places you can see some wear on. This bottom piece is wood, and so you may come across some wear here. There's not too bad. I may consider just leaving it alone for now, until I may need to just take it in and get that sewn up as well to keep it together. Now on to probably what I imagine is the most important part of all this. Here's the owner's manual for the Model 666R. I'm surprised that all this was together and was in as good of condition as it is. It's all very oiled, no doubt over age, due to age and as well as its use from whoever did it with, But here we read some of the general specifications regarding its ranges. As mentioned, 0 to 5,000 at 1,000 ohms per volt. This is for DC volts. AC volts is 0, 10, 50, 250, 1,000, 5,000, similar to DC, at 1,000 ohms per volt. Then we got the DC milliamps at 0, 10, and 100 at 250 millivolt. And then DC amps 0 to 1 at 250 millivolt as well. Ohms, the readings are 0, 3,000, and 300,000 with the center scale reading of 20 to 2,000. And then you do megohms at 0 to 3 with center scale reading of 20,000. So obviously I'm not going to read through the whole thing because it just kind of gives you the brief overview, lets you know that what connection, where to plug the leads into depending on what connections you wish to be making. As mentioned, if you want to be reading with the 5,000 volts DC or AC, or using the 1 amp DC, you need to be using the respective connection leads. So again, 5,000 volts AC or DC, it won't matter. 1 amps, clearly reading not millis. Now, in case if you want to go looking for it, the leather carrying case I just showed you, its model is 669. And as mentioned, it was only obtained on special order. So whether or not you have it, you might be out of luck, you might not, depending on where you got it from. And then it just goes through general operations. It lets you know if you want to be able to perform certain functions using this, then it would be putting in a resistor between on your volt or milliamp line for your test lead. There talks about the noise that could be on your signal. And then here's your operations chart. Section regarding the microfarads. And then now it talks about maintenance. Won't you have that? I misread. Instead of 1.2, I believe 1.2 volt AA batteries have been pretty okay. I haven't noticed any issues with them in terms of its operations, but they do the batteries that were originally provided are part of the are actually supposed to be 1.5 volts. Sorry, let me get that out there. So, and of course here the parts location, so it specifies what each of those pieces I showed you, let me show that again in the back, are for, or rather, excuse me. And so it specifies each of their functions. If obviously certain readings are going wrong or funny, you can use this guy to retrace your steps there. Put that back. Thank you. Shows the actual wiring diagram here. And it gives the replacement parts for each one of these guys. You know, what an equivalent would be. So as mentioned, here's the batteries. We got some more of these ohm resistors all the way down. Some of the shunts. And now here's an old warranty. So this is what has come with the triplet that I have, and everything seems to have been in good condition. So the point of this video is to be able to again give a scancing overview of glancing overview of what has come with and what looks like came out of the factory when ordered. If you also, point of this, if you have any questions, specifically, of course, probably the most helpful information is going to be coming from this owner's manual, instruction manual. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section, and I will do my best to address them and find those answers for you if there's something in terms of official documentation. Otherwise, I can also try and even just send pictures to a location that you want in order to be able to have that. So thank you for watching. I hope that this was informational, and thank you for bearing through it.